Greetings, War Thunderers. This is Longshot with you again. And this is a tutorial video on flying the CAC Boomerang in arcade. It's a Tier 2 premium fighter with a battle rating of 4.0, which is similar to many Tier 3 planes. Indeed, since September 2013, it's climbed all the way up from an original rating of just 2.3. Many people have looked at its current battle rating and decided the plane is no longer viable, and as a result have parked it in their hangar and even sworn off buying any more premium planes. So in this video I'm going to look at whether the plane can still be effective despite the competition it faces, and I'll analyse tactics that bring out the best of this plane. Before we begin, a quick look at the plane. It's armed with 4 .303 caliber light machine guns in the wings, and also has 2 wing-mounted Mark II 20mm Hispano cannon, which is what this plane relies on the most in arcade. Historically, it didn't score a single kill as it was too slow to catch up to Japanese aircraft. In War Thunder, most planes it faces will also be considerably faster. So let's go to battle and see how it fares. For its ammunition, I've selected stealth for both weapons. The cannon have the highest mix of high explosive shells, and none of the other belts make the 303s more effective. Make sure you set the fuel to the minimum of 45 minutes. It defaults to an hour 40 minutes, which will make the plane handle like a whale. My convergence is 400 meters, as I'll be shooting from relatively close range, where the weapons will do the most damage. The first thing I'm going to do, and it won't be a surprise to regular viewers, is to climb. This plane is a noted dogfighter. In fact, if you want to see what it's capable of in a dogfight, I've created another video with a series of duels involving the Boomerang. And if you have annotations turned on, you'll see a link to that vid if you'd like to check it out at some point. So if this plane excels in turn fights, why am I climbing? Because altitude gives you the priceless commodity of perspective over a battle, where you choose when and how to engage rather than having enemies attack you. Height can also be converted into speed when you dive, and speed gives you the ability to run planes down and to escape combat if needed. And as I'm going to demonstrate, this plane can do more than just turn fight. It's a reasonably capable energy fighter as well. The design of this particular map, with its single long runway, will funnel lots of planes at low altitude along that corridor, as they either try to land or kill other planes that are landing. And if you have height, you can make repeated diving attacks, making this map a boom and zoomer's paradise. So I'm diving from a height of just over 2,000 meters, and I'm watching to see what unfolds, waiting for a target to present itself. I see that climbing P-47 who's busy attacking a friendly, and that's an easy target. The Hispano is easily ripped into that jug, as indeed they do to most planes. I'm continuing my dive to make sure the jug's going down, and I see a Hellcat braking left with no one attacking him, so I switch, hoping for a deflection shot, but he turns and dives underneath. I'll use my speed to immediately loop over, but the Hellcat's down. And before climbing, I'll just pause and assess the situation. There's a diving P-400 that I might be able to pick up on his exit, so I head towards him, but there's a couple of friendlies chasing him, so it's time to wave off and climb properly. Okay, as everyone's hitting the deck, I really don't need to be that high. In this situation, 1,000 meters is more than enough, so once again I'm diving and looking for targets. I don't want to be sucked towards their spawn, so I'm ignoring those guys back there, and I'm heading to the right where there's a little bit of a furball underway. And there's a preoccupied climbing yak, and he's ideal. I'll use WEP to maximise my speed and close in as quickly as possible, opening fire from just beyond convergence range, while zoomed in, and the Hispanos did the rest. Once again I'm going to climb and reset. Flying over the action, I'm going to start another dive, hoping a target will become obvious on the way down. Now that P-400 hasn't died yet, and he's flying fairly straight, so even though he's heading back toward the enemy spawn, I'll risk trying for a shot. There we go. Now a quick loop to get me out of here. There's a B-25 down on the runway who's a sitting duck, but unfortunately I'm just about out of cannon. So I have 3 kills so far, but I haven't yet been fired at. I haven't had to dogfight yet, and if I'm careful I can keep doing this all game long. But here's an example of its lack of power. I make sure no other reds are nearby and then I helicopter at this P-38. I just don't have enough horses to get close. I still have good control at low speed. The plane didn't flop over in a stall. So now I have extra height, I can turn that into another diving attack. There's a fresh wave of enemies arriving. I'll see if I can slot in behind one of them. I've been impatient though, and I just turn back onto this P-63. I'll just take a quick deflection shot. Didn't get the kill, and then extend away and assess the situation. But I'm a bit impatient again. Didn't really look to see where everyone was. I'm not that far from the furball, and by looping in close proximity I've made myself a target. And death comes quickly at this battle rating if you make an error of judgment. Here's another example of using the Boomerang as a boom and zoomer. I'm the only fighter on my team to have positioned myself to defend out to the left, so you can tell at the outset on this map that my team is going to lose this battle. However, that also gives me a rich array of targets. And down on the right I can see that aerocopter trying to climb up at me, so after climbing myself I'm going into a fake head-on, and then I'll pull up in order to avoid his fire and make him stall his plane as he tries to target me. The Boomerang's superb handling allows me to quickly swivel around and line him up. Directly in my sights below is a Ki-43, so it's only logical to extend into a diving attack. I'm giving priority to fighters over bombers because they can shoot me down, the fighters can, and for another reason I'll touch on later. Heading back towards friendly territory, a Kitty Hawk presents a third target. Only a critical, but that's enough. So notice how that began by stalling out a climbing attacker. What if I took the plane up to high altitude in a ground strike game and explored the possibilities of using it in that role? This is my initial burst climb, in which I gain 800 meters before having to rest my engines and recover speed. At this T level, that's not a great climb rate. Therefore, to gain altitude, I need to climb sideways to the battle, or even away from it, to keep myself safe from attack. I'm running this clip at double speed to save time. No enemies have appeared, so I'm safe to start advancing as I continue my burst climbing. As I start popping into view, I'll hang out to the side of the battle as I'm not yet as high as I'd like to be. The last thing I want is someone with dive speed helicoptering up at me. Okay, the P-47 to the right is a threat, but most of the other fighters are going lawn mowing. I'm also watching that B-7A2 as it's a dangerous boom and zoomer, but it seems he's dived as well. Okay, back at normal speed. Coming up at me through the clouds are a Corsair and a 109. I'll burst climb again to make sure I'm above them, and then I'll watch to see what they do. Okay, so the 109's hanging back, but the Corsair is attacking. I'll see if I can repeat what I did to the P-39 in the last battle. Just flying across his line of fire to make him stand on end and then stall his plane, and then a ninja turn, and I'll hit his full profile at point blank range. And that's a tribute to the manoeuvrability of this plane. That Corsair had no chance. Watching the 109, but he has no stomach for the fight and he's diving away. I'll keep a close eye on him to make sure. Remember the P-47 at altitude early on? Well, I see him approaching now and I think he's probably going to attack me, so I'm prepared for a fake head-on in order to get him to climb and stall. But as it turns out, he's asleep at the joystick, and I have the easiest of shots. Let no one tell you the Hispanos are a poor weapon in this game. So as you can see, my team now has total altitude supremacy with plenty of other fighters up here providing competition for kills. So it's time for me to start looking lower down for targets to dive on. And there's a furball back down there at ground level, but I don't want to join them if I can help it. That P-38 looks promising though, so I'll drop into a dive and just see what happens. He has no idea of the trouble he's in. climb away and look for more victims. I apologise for the camera being a bit jerky in this and the next battle. The more nervous I am, and you have a right to be nervous flying a slow boomerang with so many high-powered planes around, the more I constantly scan my surroundings, as death can come in the blink of an eye if you miss something. If either of those two planes to my lower left climb, I'll be diving to attack them. Okay, P-39's disappeared into the clouds. That leaves the 109. And he's looking quite promising now. I'll just take my time to get in position directly above him so he doesn't see me coming. And here we go. To be honest, the Boomerang isn't doing anything special here. I could fly this way with a lot of planes, even an A6M. The speed of the turn I pulled on the Corsair would be difficult to replicate in most fighters, but otherwise it's been simple energy tactics, and the power of the Hispanos has done the rest. I'm very interested in the Aerocobra who's attacking a friendly Beaufighter over there. I'll see if I can get in position to attack, and as this plane's slow, it'll take a little while. If he dives, I'm not going to follow. Ideally I want to catch him while he's either climbing or busy firing at the bow. And I'm going to climb myself to make sure that I'm not an easy target if he decides to switch. In position at last, it's go time. He's helicoptering up, but my attack angle's a bit steep, which doesn't give me much time on target. I'm spraying my shots around a bit, and as a result I've missed that kill. I could still get him if he hangs around a dogfight. But no, he's diving away, and I'm not going to follow him down there in front of their spawn. That's one that got away. But soon afterwards, there was another climbing P-39. I'm not going to miss this time. And with that, the game was over. 5 easy but very satisfying kills. Now I expect a lot of you will be thinking, hang on, the Boomerang's a great turn fighter. Why aren't you using it to dogfight those boom and zoom planes down on the deck? And the simple answer is, I don't need to. If the plane works as an energy fighter, I'll do that all day long, and I'll only turn fight when I'm forced to or if the situation of the game demands it. And by the way, watch how fast this plane gets in this dive. Watch its handling at high speed and how well it zoom climbs afterwards. Yes, it can outturn most planes around a 4.0 battle rating, but when you're turn fighting it's very difficult to keep track of incoming threats, so your risk of being blindsided goes up exponentially. You also lose all your speed, so you can't escape. Perhaps it's just how I fly, but for me, no plane is expendable. If I was flying this for real, would I turn fight on the deck, or use the tactics I've employed in this video? I think the answer to that is pretty obvious. So anyway, in this game I'm only at mid-altitude and I'm hanging back in a defensive role. A bunch of bandits has charged in and I'm going to dive in behind and try to take one out. I decide on the Spitfire, and he banks right, which is perfect for me. Then my dive carries me towards a Zero buzzing round our base. That's 2 very simple kills, and no risky turn fighting required. Of that attacking group, only the MiG is left, and he's on fire. As he's close, I'm going to track his movements, as a burning plane can still shoot at you, and he's not dead until he's dead. There's plenty of friendlies on his tail, and I have no intention of joining in. Instead I'm going to fly top cover in case any new enemies arrive. Except now the fire's out. He's still alive, and those guys aren't getting the job done. So I decided to swoop down, as they've had plenty of opportunity to secure the kill. Back at my patrol altitude, I'm hanging around at the end of the central valley on this map, which always sees a lot of intense dogfighting. Every map has somewhere like this, that you can patrol over and secure kills in relative safety, if you're careful. The P-39 down there is isolated and looks like he might climb, so it's time to swoop in. But on the way down, a Spitfire presents itself as an easier target, so I switch. And I love the sound these cannon make. At the top of the loop, I'm looking to see if there's other planes I can immediately dive on, as I'm still at patrol altitude. There aren't, so I wave off and jink just in case I'm under attack myself, and that was the right decision. Two fast-moving bandits. I'll see if I can pick one of them up. My height not only lets me gain speed to intercept, it also means they won't be aware of me. Only the P-39's left, and I have a nice deflection shot, except I'd used up most of my ammo on the Spitfire. I'll have to settle for lighting him up, and hope the fire does the rest. The 303s really aren't much use in arcade. And that's long enough time for me to break away and reset. So afterwards there was a lull in the battle, during which enemy planes stopped arriving, so we pushed forward. I have a Beaufighter for company down there, and he's easily dealt with that Hurricane in a head-on. Some red planes are approaching, but they're at low altitude. I'm quite interested in the P-38 if he gets past the Beaufighter, which he does, and I'll see if I can slot in on his 6. I'm very unlucky not to score a kill right there. I'm going to chase him in the loop, and I'll end up right on his tail. From this angle, P-38s are hard targets. They're so thin. But what I haven't done for a little while is look around, so when I bail off the P-38, I'm a bit surprised to see a Ki-61 right behind me. And that surprise leads to a mistake. I could have just extended away as I had good speed, but I chose to turn and face him head on. And here's a pro tip in the Boomerang. Never ever go head on. Your engine is incredibly fragile and has a hitbox the size of a barn door. I damaged the P-38 enough to get my 5th kill, but I'm really annoyed at myself for having made such a simple error of judgment that's cost me a plane. If I'd been aware of the Ki-61's location earlier, I would have made a more considered decision rather than a knee-jerk one. It all comes down to situational awareness in arcade. I could possibly have reached the base and landed, but the enemy weren't going to let that happen. Anyway, there's another situation in which a Boomerang's engine is equally vulnerable. You'll note that not once in this video have I attacked a bomber, even though several times I had a shot at one. Here's an example of why you should avoid bombers in the Boomerang, especially if they have 50 cal gunners, as this B-25 does. Now I do dodge and weave to avoid his fire, but I'm still sitting on his tail a little too long. Nevertheless, a gunner can hit you at pretty much any approach angle provided it's not a blind spot. It only takes one bullet to kill the Boomerang's engine. There we go. Of course, there's one situation in which you can feel confident to attack a bomber, and that's when your engine is dead already. In this battle I'd been sneaking around the mountaintops, blindsiding people, and I'd copped a bit of damage in a skirmish with a Hurricane, enough to kill the engine and blacken a wing. And around this point I realised I wasn't going to reach my airbase and repair, so I decided to turn and head for the valley below, hoping someone might fly in front of my cannon. So while my brave and crippled boomer drifts along, let me summarise my thoughts. Yes, I do think the plane is over-tiered. It really belongs around 3.3 in arcade. However, if you use it wisely, you can not only score plenty of kills against more powerful enemies, you can even survive for long periods of time while staying actively involved. If you join a furball and turn fight, you'll drop a few enemies and probably die quickly. I prefer to climb, use energy tactics and ambush unexpected enemies. as this plane feels so out of place. You really feel like you're trolling the enemy, as they simply don't regard you as a threat. And they should. This little plane is a challenge, but I love flying it. But please, Gaijin, drop its battle rating. Well, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.